which he just put up on his sociological bar graph. As I mentioned, this, the right systematists, to you it's this, the right systematists, the left systematists, the right marginalists, and the left marginalists, and the middle marginalists. And what the assignment was to get the master's part of your PhD was to select a particular issue of public policy, death penalty, abortion, first strike nuclear weapons, anything you want, and then to survey the literature in the area of people recommending particular ways to address this public policy problem that you identified and selected, and place them along the bar graph from right systematists all the way over to left systematists, and put them on the bar graph. And that was your job, which is doing more research, of course. And that's what the PhD professors do. They get the master's students to do the research for them so they can say profound things like Talcott Parsons did. And that's what we were doing. And I started examining this, and I decided that I was going to write my master's thesis on the fact that I thought that Parsons was wrong, which is not something you usually do if you're wanting to get a PhD, wherever they're the main teacher. And so I said, I thought that he only had five nodal points on his spectrum. And I thought that in addition to the right systematists and left systematists and right marginalists and left marginalists and middle marginalists, that there was in fact a right middle marginalist and a left middle marginalist nodal point. And I thought they represented the classic conservative and liberal positions in American politics that had evolved over time. And I was writing my master's thesis on this. And what Ralph Potter had done, Ralph Potter had come in studying under Talcott Parsons, and what he wrote his PhD thesis on was attempting to try to figure out what it was. Here's the big one. You almost certainly have been wondering this yourself as I've been talking. What is it that causes a person to be a right systematist, or a middle marginalist, or a left middle marginalist, or left marginalist rather? What is it that causes that? Is it heredity? Is it sociological upbringing? What is it? And Ralph Potter had done his PhD work under Parsons, and he had developed a thing he called Potter's box. It's a foursquare, like that typical game of foursquare. And he said that what he had come to determine is that there were 4 fundamental pillar beliefs that every human being during the course of her or his life is going to have to come to grips with, ideally, if they want to be a clear thinker, which may well eliminate a large number of people right at the beginning. But if a person really longs for becoming a clear and systemic thinker, they will have to answer these 4 fundamental pillar questions. Because as it turns out, all of your other positions you end up taking are derivative of these answers. Okay? And these 4 questions, I see you right now saying, what are these 4 questions? Okay? The first of these 4 questions, which goes in the upper left-hand box of the Potter's foursquare, is cosmology. Is you need to determine how you believe cosmologically the entire universe came into being. Has it always been here? Did it come all of it at one time? Where did it come from? Why is there something rather than nothing? The second fundamental pillar question is the teleological question. And that's just a big fancy word for the unfolding. That how is it that you believe the universe is unfolding? Is it evolving, expanding out? Is it contracting and expanding? Is it different parts of it doing different? What is the teleological process pursuant to which the universe is unfolding, if any? The third major question is the ontological question. And this is the question of the nature of consciousness. Where did consciousness come from? That how in a universe of a bunch of rocks and in molten lava and suns and stuff, how did consciousness come into being? And what is its relationship to the material world? And how is it that any particular collective of mass and energy ends up having a sense of itself as separate and apart from or distinct from the rest of creation? This ontological question of ontological being. And the fourth and final of the four pillar questions is the epistemological question. Another just big fancy word for, what are the means that we as human beings have at our disposal by means of which we can possibly answer questions like that? Are we confined to what we can see, touch, taste, smell, hear? Are we confined to our five senses to take in data, even if it's magnified with telescopes and microscopes or amplifiers, but we're still confined to the data intake from our five senses and then processing it through our brains? What is the means that we have at our disposal to ascertain truth about objective facts? And it turns out that if, in fact, you answer each of these four questions in a way that is internally and self-referentially consistent with your answer to each of the other three, I'll say that again. If you answer a given question in a way that is internally and self-referentially consistent with the answers that you've provided to the other three, then you are a systematic thinker. You have come to a set of profound conclusions about the ultimate nature of reality. And that what you do is if you've answered those questions internally, self-referentially, consistently, what they will do is they will generate a common principle which, in fact, governs your mode of ethical reasoning, which means that you will make your decisions in a way as best as you possibly can to make your conduct and your decisions comport with reality. That's what you're up to. But if you haven't figured out what you think reality is, then you're basically at sea all the time. And you'd have to use some other referent for determining what you think is the right thing to do. And then you're all at sea by listening to a dictator, listening to MSNBC, figuring out what Trump wants you to do, or reading the New York Times, or finding out what Harvard University thinks the liberal position is on this. That unless you come to a set of clear operational conclusions about the answer to these four pillar questions and generate a common principle from them that governs your mode of ethical reasoning, then you're not a systematic thinker. And one thing you can bet on is that a systematic thinker is going to beat a non-systematic thinker every single time in any kind of debate, in any kind of discussion. And so one of the things that I then discovered in writing the master's thesis about the existence of these two other nodal points, coming up with 7 specific points, I realized in doing a lot of different studies that it turns out that almost everything in the sense world manifests in an octave. That the way that we see light goes from red, orange, green, yellow, blue, indigo, and then on white light. Okay? And that this is in the same way with the sounds. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It makes a complete octave. And it turns out that I discovered from talking to a number of adepts, really, that it's well known in other traditions that our human body is actually governed by 8 different energy centers. That 7 of them are in the body. That you hear about this all the time. These are the chakra. That there's a nodal point at the base of your spine, which is your first chakra center. One that's right above your gonads, either male or female. It's the second chakra. The third chakra is at the center here, your power chakra. And you have your heart chakra. You have your throat chakra. You have the chakra of your forehead by the pituitary gland. You have one, the 7th one at the crest of your head. And it turns out that there's an 8th one, which is if you hold your hand up over your head like this and close your fist, there's an 8th chakra here, which actually resides at the top of the energy envelope that is generated by your body. That this whole aura that you have around your body that can be measured and seen and everything with certain photography, that each of these energy centers vibrates at a particular frequency, and it generates an electric field that actually envelops your body. So you have these layers of energy around your body, and you actually prism reality through these energy fields that come into you. And depending upon how in balance your 8 chakras are, or if any of them are out of balance, you tend to get stuck at that place. And a person who gets stuck at their first chakra level is constantly terrified of dying, that you're going to cease to exist, that you live in constant anxiety about your survival. And if in fact you're out of balance in your second chakra, you are constantly into engaging in the conflict with an ultimate other. Constant dialectical dynamic. And you can run through the chakras to understand what these major principles are that become operative in you. And so that what we discover is that no matter how much information you give to another person, if you study all this stuff in this whole class, and you gather and you take careful notes of all the information, and you go home and you tell your brother, who's watching the Stanley Cup finals about this stuff, and he doesn't give a shit what you're talking about. Because it turns out he's energized by an entire different energy. And so that he isn't persuaded by anything that you're saying. And this is what they were telling us at Harvard, that you need to understand, first thing you need to do is figure out what your answers, your operational answers are for each of these 4 basic pillar questions. Then determine what the principle is that's common to all of them, and how that generates a particular mode of ethical reasoning. Because if you apply that mode of ethical reasoning to all of the basic questions of life that you're going to be running into in the years after you leave this classroom, if you apply that mode of ethical reasoning that is generated by that principle, and you apply that principle to every problem or challenge you face in life, that's going to generate a philosophy. That is where philosophy comes from. That is what philosophy is. It's the application of a consistent, operative mode of ethical reasoning that is generated by a consistent answer to the 4 pillar questions. And if, in fact, you look into that philosophy and attempt to apply it to the particular problem of how we go about making decisions, collective decisions in the body politic, that's going to be your political philosophy. And those political philosophies, ranging all the way from the right to the left, are authoritarianism, reactionaryism, conservatism, moderate, liberal, progressive, utopian. Now, what you'll notice is that there's an eighth one out here that has not yet been identified. And I'll just share it with you because I want you to at least know what I think. And that is that this is the worldview that we're going to form after we've established contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. When we actually come to grips with the reality that we're not the highest level of sentient beings in the universe, and that this universe was not, in fact, created just as a stage on which to play out the drama of our Homo sapiens species, evolving our consciousness to the point of realizing that everything is one. That there are other star systems now. Last night, in fact, over at the Rio, the woman who was the head of the Kepler program, the Kepler Space Telescope program, was pointing out to everyone that now, based upon the data gathered from the Kepler, which they've analyzed right here, is that virtually every single star that you can see in the universe and in our galaxy has planets around it. And that approximately 20 to 25% of them have a planet that's in the Goldilocks zone, which is at the perfect distance from the star, not too close, not to be too hot, not too far to be too cold, so that liquid water can exist on the planet. That's what they're looking at right now. And that there are literally hundreds of billions of other planets just in our galaxy on which life could very reasonably live. And some of these that are are cycling around a red dwarf, which burns much more slowly and less intensely than our star, that whereas our planet has evolved over some 4 billion years, and life has actually existed for about 3 billion years, and we have existed for basically, as a Homo sapiens species, about 300,000 years, that some of these civilizations could have evolved for 11 billion years. And so it's time for us to realize that we are not the be-all and end-all. But the problem is that we could end it all here on this planet. Because here's the bad news: not all species are meant to survive. And so some of these things that portions of our human family do with each other threaten the very existence of our species, and that we may not live to actually venture out into the stars. We may not live to actually establish and acknowledge contact with an extraterrestrial civilization that can share its views with us, to share its insights that may well generate the eighth worldview, to finish the octave. And we may well discover that octave vibrational frequency of the eighth paradigm or eighth worldview may well be the root chakra of an entire other octave of beings. And so that we may fit into a set of life in the universe, and that we have our own particular place in it, not the highest, not the lowest, but we need to know what to do about that. This is one of the principal challenges that the Catholic Church has now issued a major public statement about this. Father Jose Gabriel Funes, the director of the Pontifical Observatory at Castel Gandolfo outside of Rome, has issued a major public statement saying that it is the position of the Catholic Church that in light of the discovery of more and more of these new exoplanets, that it is very clear that much sooner than we had ever anticipated, we are going to be discovering life elsewhere in the universe. And when I went to see him and sat down to talk with him, within 3 minutes, he was acknowledging that he was talking about and other highly intelligent, highly technologically developed, but distinctly non-human species elsewhere in our galaxy. And that this is very likely to take place in your lifetime. Okay? So that this is going to be the next challenge for the next century. You have the global climate change crisis to confront, to figure out how to preserve our species on past this short next 100-year period, so that we can get into the next age where the issue of how we're going to reconceive of ourselves and who we are in the universe as the next challenge. And you will be the civic generation that will be dealing with the next group of people who are the civic generation of the next century who have to deal with that issue. Okay? So I wanted to just share some of those, what I think are strategic secrets that you would otherwise not know about. Okay? And I want to spend the last 15 minutes or so in talking with others of you who have not already indicated what it is you want to write your thesis on, your magnum opus. And as I pointed out to you, that there is no page limit on what you can write. You do have to write at least 12 pages. It sounds bizarre because, to try to figure out how you can keep on going until you get to 12 pages on something that, you could say in 3 pages is a total bummer. I noticed some of you working hard at it in your paper earlier, but you've got to try to figure out first what it is you really think, what it is you really believe, what it is you want to know about. It's going to merit some additional research or actually, dare I say, reading some of the readings that I've been suggesting to you, which I know you haven't been reading, because it's so easy just to come and listen to me, right? Or watch on the video. Worse yet, for the kids who don't show up. But you're going to have to do some of the reading. But I want you to be doing it about something that you really want to know about, that has to do with this course. Okay? So what have we got now? So tell me. What is it? What is it you'd like to write about? Oh, no, her and then you.
I wanted to write about Trump's relationship with the oil corporations and how that there is an exploitation with the indigenous people here. I'm still developing it, but how the presidential candidate's position on the stance of global climate change and how that could impact future policies that are created.
All right. Well, that's a big one. That's a big one. So say don't hesitate to call or drop lines to John or me as you're going along if you hit into something that you want to know more about. Okay? Can we help? Okay.
I was kind of writing about what I would do in the current state of living right now regarding climate change. And I thought that the best option for me to do would be to educate others. So I was going to look into and researching other outreach groups that are trying to infiltrate schools and whatnot and give children actual information on climate change that isn't exactly politically biased or isn't coming off as politically biased, but as just straight facts. And I think that'd be very interesting to take my hands on.
And you should also try to find out information about what the responses of some of the school systems have been about either being open or not open to having people come and talk to them about that in different states too, so that you'll see that this issue of the state-run schools, they tend to enforce the belief of their state, and that usually is the governing party in their state. So that you're going to find that that they're as you know, the Trump administration is ordering various agencies, including the Environmental Protection Agency, to remove from any of their documents the term global climate change. You know, and so that idea, this is the 70th anniversary of 1984 with George Orwell's famous book about the creation of a completely artificial false reality, and the government, Big Brother, kind of force feeding it to everybody to adopt. And so that this preposterous position that the administration has taken has infected a number of the states. And the states have in turn infected their school system in not allowing, in the same way that they prohibited at one time the teaching of evolution, that they're prohibiting the teaching of their students of anything about global climate change. So that's something you should touch on as well. Okay?
If I could just add in something, I also encourage you to consider timing, because global climate change is a problem with a deadline. And so we have to be educated, yes, but we also have to act, and the action deadline is coming up quick. So if you're thinking about educating, you have to do so within that time frame. So I encourage you to consider timing as well.
Yeah, the rate of education. Okay. What are you thinking of doing?
I'm planning on examining the history of Trump's foreign and domestic emoluments and how it violates the Constitution, how it leads to a conflict of interest.
Now, let me ask this, that the emoluments that, for example, his simply putting people up at his hotel is one of the things they keep talking about, but the emoluments about the oil companies is one that is most pertinent to the global climate change topic of the course. And so that his involvement is Amy, is it? Is that right? Amanda, I'm sorry. Amanda. That the same kind of thing that Amanda is talking about doing, about looking at the relationship of Trump with oil companies, et cetera, and potentially attempting to profit in some way from that is an easier focus. Because if you wander off on, because this isn't, of course, just about the impeachment. To say, oh, look, here's how he ought to be impeached because of having Saudis stay at his hotel. So you try to focus in on this issue of his relationship with the oligarchs, with Russia, with their oil, et cetera. Okay, because that's an important focus for this stuff. Okay, and you told me yesterday, right? Yes.
I was gonna write like a pretty much like a legal opinion, an argument as to how indigenous peoples in America can stop the Keystone XL pipeline using Canadian legal precedent.
Okay, good. All right, and then we'll file that for you. Okay, in Canada. Okay.
So, give this some thought. I think like looking at how the Green New Deal is going to lead American citizens on our ontological path to reaching a higher state of consciousness. How having jobs, healthcare, a livable future in clean water does not only affect the environment in a positive way, but also will affect American people. I think these 4 pillars of this reading of Don Hagel will probably help this paper. Another portion that I want to have is the lawsuits that have currently been done for the Juliana versus government case. It'd be interesting to look at. That's not the Green New Deal, but that is currently in the midst of the legal fight for the planet. As well as other specific lawsuits that have been done for like environmental justice cases, and like whether or not grassroots organizing and lawsuits have like a deep interconnection, or one is more efficient than the other one, or one is they're kind of supported. So there's a lot going on.
That's right. Well, just be careful. Be careful. You know, you can drift off and do 1/3 of a job on 3 different things. That you really want to do a full job on at least one, and figure out. And if the 2 or 3 of them are intimately related, you want to get to that point of knowing how they are. Okay? All right.
So I want to, I'm not exactly sure what form this is going to take yet because it's such an expansive topic. But I mean, basically, I just wanted to explore what it would actually take to stop climate change, tactically, actually what political developments would have to take place, what what actions outside of the political system would the populace have to undertake, and how is what the trend essentially. So I haven't really developed a firm concept of exactly what path that is going to take.
I hear where it's going. Well, one of the things you might do is to argue that there's going to have to be forward-leaning activity on many fronts, and that there's going to be a symbiotic relationship between and among those activities that feed off each other and support each other. For example, it's always clear that when you go to sit down with a congressperson and tell them you want them to, oh, she's escaped before I got her. Okay, she knew that was coming. All right, that when you're going to talk to a particular legislator, you know, they're always very much aware of somebody engaging in an activity that is extremely disruptive, whether it's Earth First or other kind of people, and that they are very thankful to have someone come into their office and offer them a solution to staving off that threat. You know, so that you want to realize that even though a particular action in and of itself may not succeed in generating the result that it might want to, it may be able to be referenced and used by someone else as a lever point. So, and that's going to be really important for what you're talking about. What is the matrix of it? And I should just point out one final thing with regard to the issue of the spectrum of worldviews, is that, as you may know, each one of the chakras is noted by a particular color, the vibrational frequency of them. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, the same colors of the spectrum relate to the vibrational frequencies of the chakras in the body. And what they discover is that if you take 7 different colored, pure colored laser beams of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, etc., pure colors, and you shine them together on a single point, what they do is the lasers set up a mutual interference pattern that generates white light. And so that this issue of having people moving forward from their own particular worldview, attempting to accomplish something that is consistent with the objectives of their worldview, that it may be necessary to have all of them operative at the same time for them to interact with each other to generate the crystal clear solution to something. And that's sort of the paradigmatic end to your potential thesis. I've got you. Yeah. Yeah, I got you yesterday too. And
so I'm thinking about kind of writing, since climate change is basically happening before our eyes. I'm talking about the effects in lower income communities, which most likely is going to be people of color. So I'm just going to talk about the effects of that and what can be done like right now to start preventing that.
And there's another thing you're going to run into, which is the compensation, that there's a major dynamic going on attempting to bill the countries such as the United States and China and India that are responsible for generating the vast percentage of the global greenhouse gas emissions, that they should be taxed for what they've done, and those funds should be transferred to the people, the poor people of the world that are suffering the brunt of the global climate change, and that they ought to be being paid to move their homes, for example, out of the path of destruction, desertification, typhoons, floods, rising sea levels, etc. So there's an entire thing you want to take a look at, which is that whole issue of the idea of compensation for what they've done. Not to authorize them to continue just to pay money and continue doing it, but to pay for their past sins. It's sort of penance money. okay? All right. Pardon?
My idea so far is kind of a lot, like combining what the last person said and what they were saying in the front. I'm in a master's program to be teaching next year, and so I'll be very quickly into classrooms. It's only a year long. And like I've always been very passionate about like the low-income communities, especially because I come from a refinery city.
Yeah.
So taking the impacts of climate change and like how refineries are disproportionately placed in low-income communities, and just not only educating the community itself on like this is happening disproportionately to us, but like what we can do, especially the importance of voting, because I'm a history teacher essentially by that point, and we'll look at the like history of everything. So highlighting the importance of history and education, and then just like how that ties into like people voting, like being participating in democracy, and then also its impact on like environmental awareness.
All right. Okay, good. All right, so there we are. I'm going to be available for office hours over at the whatever the name of it is. Yeah, over there. But thank you for coming. You were the guys who came consistently throughout the thing, and you'll be getting specific extra credit for having come. There's still people, I wouldn't even recognize them if I tripped over them, that are still in the course. I see their names on the paper, and I don't know what they're doing, but you guys are the ones that came, and so you're the ones that I want to make sure are adequately rewarded for this, okay? Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the class, and I'll see some of you maybe next spring, okay? Terrific.
Welcome, friends. James Corbett here, CorbettReport.com, with an edition of Propaganda Watch. And I know what you're thinking to yourself. You're thinking, why on earth are we blessed with not one, but two Propaganda Watch episodes this week? Well, it's because, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Stupor Bowl. Yes, that great event that comes along once a year to basically unfold a sort of ritual before the masses that, of course, plays out in the halftime show, as I'm sure viewers of the Corbett Report will be aware. But today we're going to talk about a different aspect of that. It was just the other day I was talking to CorbettReport.com video editor Broc West. Well, Broc's interest in the event was not so much in the game itself as in the commercials, which I'm sure everyone knows is where the big propaganda narrative themes for the year are unveiled after, I guess, the globalist talking heads get their marching orders from Davos and they come to unfurl them at the Stupor Bowl for the unwashed masses. And Brock said, well, you should do a propaganda watch on it. I thought, that's a good idea, but instead of me sitting there and watching the commercials and analyzing them, why don't we do it live here on air? I haven't seen these commercials yet. Brock has gathered them up, and we're going to watch them here together with you and dissect the propaganda and hopefully learn a little bit more about where the technocratic elite want to steer the globe and hopefully how we can get away from that. So Broc West, thank you so much for the idea, and thank you for joining us today.
I guess, thank you, James. I can say it's been a few days since the superb owl was, broadcast to the masses. Mm-hmm. And I can also confirm that the dirt still has not come off.
Yeah.
So,
I can imagine. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, let this be a proviso, not only on this edition of Propaganda Watch, but maybe on every edition of Propaganda Watch. If you don't want to be subjected to the propaganda and programming, you don't want it to enter your consciousness at all, feel free to tune out now. Click that close button. Don't watch it. It's okay. You don't have to. I do have to. It's my job to dissect this propaganda and know what the technocratic elite are trying to foist on us. But you don't have to. And I always want that to be an option in your mind. You don't have to dissect the propaganda at all times if you feel you know where this is going. So let's just leave that there. And if you click out now, I'm 100% on board with you. If not, if you're along for the ride, settle in your seat. I've got my coffee to help power through these propaganda constructs. Brock did mention when he was talking about this with me the other day, he said that there was an overarching theme to this year's commercials, and I guessed military? He said no. My second guess was technocratic? Yeah, something along those lines. So I haven't seen any of these videos yet. We're going to be watching them live right here. And Brock, if you've got your nose plug firmly in place, we'll get into the first one. Okay, here we go. I'm clicking now. Oh, what do we got?
All right, check it out. I call him RoboChild. Hey, buddy.
Oh, dear.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I would like to be a TurboTax Live CPA.
It's odd.
Don't you want to be something else?
Yeah, RoboChild, you could be anything.
But Papa, I want to help people get their best possible refund. All right, let's just break it down, okay? RoboChild, all TurboTax Live CPAs are human beings with real emotions. I'm sorry, but you're never going to be emotionally complex enough for that job. Is that true, Papa?
Yeah.
I am sad. See what I mean?
He's still perfecting emotion.
TurboTax Live, now with CPAs on demand.
Okay.
And the reason I started with this one, because, James, it combines your two very favorite things, transhumanism and taxation. What could be?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, because the CPAs feel your pain and they empathize because they're humans and they love you and they just want you to jump through the right hurdles and fill out the right forms in your tax kettle box so that you get the best refund you can get, right? Yeah, beautiful. And, of course, it also tugs on those heartstrings for parents out there. Hey, it's just like your child, except it's a bundle of wires with a little mask on top of it. Isn't it so cute? Yeah, I have a feeling I know where this is heading, but you know.
Yeah. At least with Sophia, the super celebrity robot that was unveiled last year or the year before, they sort of attempted to make it dress it up a little bit.
Yeah.
This one's just a creepy doll's face. It's just ugh.
Get used to it, Brock. It's the accountants of the future. They're coming for your white-collar jobs. Don't worry.
That's right. Yeah, do you want to move on to our second one?
Yeah, no, but we will. Clicking now.
There are hundreds of millions of acres of forest in the United States. What's happening with them today is the result of centuries of past decision-making. Forests are made up of complex, interconnected systems. And there's never been a way to measure all of these systems. And you can't manage what you can't measure. Through Microsoft's AI for Good initiative, we've created the first high-resolution inventory of all U.S. forests to provide better data and to make better decisions.
We've been timbering this land for over 40 years. The watershed provides drinking water to all of the citizens of Duncannon. It is not maintained in a sustainable way.
Duncannon came to the Nature Conservancy because they had no forest management plan. Using Sylvia Terra, the borough will know how many trees are per acre, waterways will be mapped and buffered. This will be sustainably managed working forest forever.
Working with Microsoft AI has been transformative because it allows us to scale our process globally and to democratize access to this kind of information.
We have the forest that we have today. We can't change that. What we can change is the future.
Microsoft AI and Sylvia Terra are empowering landowners so they can grow the forests of the future. Every single person has a stake in this.
Yeah. All right. Well, that one hits a number of buttons. What was that line? That's got to be the takeaway line. You can't manage what you can't measure. That is the technocratic principle in a nutshell. You cannot define it more perfectly than that. You can't manage what you can't measure. That actually goes to a very philosophical point on the question concerning technology by Heidegger. So for anyone who's interested in philosophy, read that essay. But essentially, it's the same thing. You can't manage what you can't measure. So everything has to become standing reserve, has to be a thing that you can measure and manage in some way that becomes useful for some purpose, as opposed to being a thing. Nature being nature. natural environment just being there. No. We have to measure precisely every tree and know every square inch of the forest, which of course is all part of this Internet of Everything, the Internet of Things that is becoming possible because of the 5G technology that they're going to be rolling off. Oh, it just all connects so beautifully, and with Microsoft AI. And of course, they're just hyping and using the hyped term AI here. I'm not sure exactly what artificial intelligence is really going on here. I'm not sure what intelligence is going on, let alone artificial. But yeah, that hits a number of buttons right there, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, the thing with the global transhumanist agenda, it's kind of a little bit of a misnomer. Of course, it's transhumanism and the surrendering of humanity to our robot overlords, but that's only a small, that's only one part of it too. Nature itself is, in fact, I think an even more important thing that this agenda wants to get its talons into ever more and more.
Yeah, and that's the worst part. Of course, they're going to sell it as some green, wonderful initiative for people who care about the Earth, but it's the exact opposite. No, it's about controlling every resource on the planet, monopolizing it. All right. Oh,
well. So how about for commercial number 3, we bring things back home, and I'm afraid literally. Roll clip.
Oh, dear. All right.
Janet saw a creepy guy in the cul-de-sac last night.
What you don't know about your garage door will kill you.
It's official. You can't eat wheat bread.
Someone's been stealing packages. They call them porch pirates.
My son bought a snake on the dark web.
It's a python. 5 years, robots will be able to do your job, your job, your job, your job, your job, your job.
Greg, are you listening?
Always, Denise. We are always listening. In a world full of fear,
Someone has been stealing packages. Simply Safe on.
Your home should be anything but. Because home is a place you should simply feel safe.
Oh, God, yeah. And the upside-down triangle with the light rays emanating is a nice touch there, huh? All right, well, I still don't know what SimpliSafe is from watching that.
It's apparently a home security system, smart system, and the title of that video is literally called "Fear is Everywhere."
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, you can't... Well, I mean, I guess it's the best way to sell some crap like that people don't really need is to just shove it in your face. Yeah, the only way to make you want this is to put fear in your face. And there you go. And the answer is this friendly little thing sitting on your counter that's going to be glowing with its evil bluish rays. And probably, I guess, listening to everything that goes on, recording everything that goes on. Where does that data go? Don't worry about that. Just put it in your home. Just don't think about it. So anyway, I don't even know what this SimpliSafe is, but I ain't putting it in my home. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, for clip number 4, let's go along that theme. And no trip down transhumanist artificial intelligence lane would be complete without Alexa. This one, I'm just going to let this one speak for itself. Roll clip.
Let's reheat pasta.
Reheating pasta.
It's cool, right?
Yeah, I didn't know you guys put Alexa in a microwave.
Yeah, we're putting her in a lot of stuff now. But trust me, there are a lot of fails.
Like what?
Like...
Alexa, play my podcast.
When you heard that, did that surprise you? Or it seems exciting.
We need an Alexa dog collar. 4 dogs.
Ordering dog food. Ordering dog food.
You can bark all you want. I'm not paying for any more dog food.
Ordering gravy. Ordering sausages.
Hey, you better cancel that order.
Alexa hot tub. A sucked.
Alexa, play music. Okay.
And then there was the incident.
Wait, that was you guys.
I don't know, was it?
Powering down.
Powering up. Powering down.
She says she's doing it, but I don't see anything. Do you? Holy.
Stop me now.
I'm not talking to you.
'Cause I'm having a good time, having a good time.
Why?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the overwhelming question I have there. Look, I'm not into the cult of celebrity. I don't care about these celebrities that are paraded before us, but I don't even understand why Harrison Ford would do a commercial like that. Yeah, I don't have enough money. I think I'll take the $1 million to do this Super Bowl commercial. I mean, why?
I've got to say, it's his best acting role he's had in a decade, so...
Oh, did you see Blade Runner? Oh, maybe not.
No, I didn't, not yet.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm assuming the other people in there were celebrities of some sort, but I'm glad to say I'm far enough detached from pop culture. I don't know anyone else, but I recognized Harrison Ford.
Yep.
Yeah, and what was the point of that commercial? That you'll be able to control the Earth through Alexa? Oh no, Amazon will be able to control the Earth through Alexa, I think more to the point, right?
The global smart grid. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. What could go wrong? Oh, everything can go wrong. Oh, it's just a joke. Oh, isn't that cute? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how many pop cultural elements did they smash in together there? Ugh.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Well,
that was sickening enough. All right.
We've got one more, and obviously, as you've seen, the previous 4 commercials all had the AI transhumanist power smart grid running through it. This one's a little different, but this was probably the most talked about commercial that happened during the Superb Owl of 2019. I'm not going to give it in any introduction. I'm just going to let it speak for itself.
Okay.
Roll clip.
When we go off to war, when we exercise our rights, when we soar to our greatest heights, when we mourn and pray, when our neighbors are at risk, when our nation is threatened, there's someone to gather the facts, to bring you the story, no matter the cost. Because knowing empowers us. Knowing helps us decide. Knowing keeps us free.
Knowing keeps us free, indeed.
Nothing says we're real news and journalism like a $5 million commercial telling you over and over that we're real news and journalism. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, what is the target audience there? They think they're going to get a bunch of subscriptions out of that? No, of course not. It's, at this point, newspapers are a loss leader. Everyone knows that. At best, you can maybe recoup some of the losses on a website that's, got 8 million ads all over it. Or subscribe to a subscription website. That's a way to go, right? But yeah, why are they advertising on the Super Bowl? Because clearly the people who control the media are losing their control of society by losing control of the narrative, by people losing faith in the mainstream media. Last-ditch effort to try to catch those few people who still get their news, I guess, from TV commercials. I don't know. But yeah, I didn't notice the like-dislike ratio on all of these videos, but I'm looking at this one. 12K up, 8.9K down, which I'm assuming is edited, shall we say.
Yeah.
Because I know that was with that Gillette commercial recently, they had a ridiculous dislike ratio that magically evened out, or sort of restored near 1-to-1.
Apparently, they're doing the YouTube or the YouTube algorithm or whatever. The NFL are doing the same thing with the widely laughed at and hated halftime show with Maroon 5 and whoever else. Apparently, they're deleting dislikes of that and everything. And interestingly enough, that's been a thing that the one of the main YouTube guys, I can't remember his name, they're talking about the potential of eventually removing the YouTube dislike button altogether because it's been weaponized.
Yeah, exactly.
Weaponized, so.
Oh, how dare people express the fact that they don't like this video? I mean, how can they possibly do that? Yeah, I refuse to believe there are 12,000 people who watch that and say, yes, yeah, Washington Post, they're the truth tellers. You tell them. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Manufacturing consent, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So do you feel dirty, James? That's my question.
Yeah, I do. I do not feel enriched, but I certainly can sense, what way they're trying to take it. And
yeah, and the commercials I collected there, especially the AI ones, that's just a small gathering. There were, from what I saw when I watched the game and watched the 3 or 4 hours of the televised broadcast, it was dozens and dozens of AI commercials, and but those ones are the most jarring. So
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, absolutely. Technocratic future. So why big oil conquered the world gets more and more prescient as the years roll by. Unfortunately. God, I wish I was wrong. I really wish that this was not what they were planning. Technocracy is a real thing, and they're forming the grid. And they want to get you on it, and they'll do anything. They'll even make fun of the grid. Oh, isn't it funny? Oh, Alexa will turn entire continent's energy on and off. It'll be great.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Sorry about that.
Well, hey, it has to be done. It's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it. Anyway, yeah. For the people who did tune out, you're lucky. For the people who are still with us, well, at least we know a little bit more about the overarching narrative for the year. I'm sure it will be a recurring theme in 2019. And again, we have to understand where they want to take us so that we know how to effectively combat that. And that's the point of operations like these. Thank you, Broc, for bringing this to my attention. I know it's not the funnest part of the job, but it is necessary. So thank you for joining us. And let's do it again next year.
We'll see. We'll see.
Good answer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you all for joining in, and I'll be back talking to you very soon. James Corbett, CorbettReport.com.